Hello, friends. This is Christopher Davis-Shannon, and today I am hopping across the country to Albuquerque to speak with the wonderful Jim DeVille. Jim, how are you this morning?
I'm sunny and warm with the highs in the low 70s.
He really likes to rub that in for those of you listening at home, as it's about 50 degrees, raining, and just disgusting here in Philadelphia. So with that said, Jim, would you mind kicking us off with a tune?
Sure, Christopher. Thanks for having me first off. And I'll start off with a waltz. I love waltzes and I love instrumentals. And here's one that I wrote a number of years ago called The Waltz of the Sunflowers.
Thank you for that lovely tune, Jim. And besides being a wonderful composer, songwriter, Jim is probably best known for his education. He's taught numerous people in this world, probably countless people, how to play the uke at festivals. And with the current state of the world, obviously we're not flying around teaching at festivals currently. And Jim has created his PopUp Uke Club online. Jim, would you mind telling us a little bit about what inspired you to start doing this months ago when the pandemic first started, and what you're doing over there?
Well, about March, I guess everybody that is on the professional ukulele teaching and playing circuit realized that all the gigs were being canceled through the spring, then through the summer, and then into the fall. And fortunately, I sort of put my Nostradamus hat on and said, listen, the rent will continue through the summer and fall. And so I just wanted to start to bring people together online. I obviously had a presence in the ukulele community as my role as a contributing editor to Ukulele Magazine, and all the years I've spent on the road and traveling all over to festivals. So I just sort of pulled those resources into a Facebook page and started a group called PopUp Uke. And I thought, I've got nothing to do Monday through Friday. So I started a 1-hour group Monday through Friday at 3 o'clock Mountain Time. And suddenly there were, 10, 20, 30, up to 50 people started to showing up every day at PopUp Uke for this 1-hour lesson. It was sort of a very loose lesson, but as it evolved, I used my background in radio to sort of create a show. And we had our membership committee, and how many people have joined up over the last day or so, and we started just becoming this community. And the funny thing about the teaching element of this pandemic and everyone going online is that it seemed like people were becoming closer as a community in my little pop-up group than the typical, you go to a festival, you teach a class, you go home and you don't get to know anybody. But these people were coming every day and they were absorbing all this great information. I had to really ramp up my content. Oh
Yeah.
boy, we've got these people want to learn. So we were doing finger exercises and singing the chromatic solfege up and down and really working on our ear training. And of course, we'd have fun too. We'd have trivia contests. We'd always have a song or two that we would learn by the numbers instead of just putting the regular jam up, because I'm a complete proponent of not using the paper as much as most people do. So it turned into a great thing. And now I just took another job, part-time job, teaching online to some school kids in Washington, D.C. I started that last Monday, early October. And so I'm only doing PopUp Uke now Tuesday through Friday, 3 o'clock Mountain Time. That's 5 o'clock Eastern Time, Tuesday through Friday. And all you have to do is go to Facebook, type in PopUp Uke Group, and join the page. And that's where all the Zoom login information is.
Wonderful. And I'm curious, this transition to online education, I know has been a struggle for a lot of us, but do you think that maybe there are, in fact, some positives there? Do you find that you drastically have to change your teaching style to accommodate the online world, or do you find it easier to teach online versus in person at a festival doing workshops? Because I see some distinct differences there, and advantages and disadvantages of both. And I'm just curious on your views on that.
Well, you're absolutely right that they are completely different animals. In person, you have to be more of an entertainer, I think, and keep the audience engaged in that, especially the adult beginner or the adult learner. These people, they have a very short attention span because they've been learning their entire lives, and they have preconceived ideas. And so you have to not only keep them interested, you have to keep providing information for them to make the workshops work. So in my case, I do a lot of fun things just to keep it moving. But online, it's completely different. You don't have to be as animated, but also it's a completely different. You're like doing television, and if you have a background like I do in radio, you know how to keep a show going, and you have to keep different elements up and graphics. And so I put all that together for my PopUp Uke, but the learning is a different environment. And plus you have the one-on-one with the Zoom aspect of communicating directly with the students. And what I found, I recently had a medical condition where I had to step away for a couple of weeks, and they just carried on. It was like, I mean, we're going to keep this going. We're poppers, we're not going to let this die. And it was absolutely fabulous. And people came in and guest hosted for me. And, but the people are learning and teaching each other too. They'll have a light bulb moment. And as a matter of fact, I put up a little thing, light bulb moment, and then they'll share it with, how did you get to that point to learn that? And it really has become a learning community. So that's the big difference between that and the regular festival learning environment.
Yeah, and I fully agree with that. I actually want to touch on something that you had said a minute ago, which is about the performative aspect of teaching, especially at festivals, which I think is something that a lot of people don't think about, both performers and students alike, that being up in front of people, it's not like teaching in a classroom, really, when
No.
you're doing a festival like that. When you were first starting out doing larger workshops, do you feel that is something that you had to learn? I know that you do have the background in hosting and such like that, so it might have been easier transition for you, but did you have some challenges early on in addressing the energy level of what you really need to bring to a workshop?
Oh yeah, I've been doing workshops probably for over 25 years now. I started when I was a 5-string banjo player, and I just wanted to make the theory behind music easier and accessible, so you didn't have to get these big theory books. And it only takes knowing the diatonic scale, the major scale,
Absolutely.
the chords of the major scale, and you can make a really quick path into understanding song structure and music theory. And that's what I wanted to do. And I got to hang around some great teachers myself, like banjo legend Bill Keith was one of my mentors when I was on the banjo. So when you see great teachers teach, you you want to be a great teacher, you pick up on what they're doing, and you borrow from the past, and then you take it to where you want to go. And I think the one thing that has been most advantageous to me is my way that I can structure things. You have to be completely prepared. I've never been not prepared. I mean, I've got everything down, as Robert Preston said in The Music Man, to the last wave of the brakeman's hand on the last train out of town. That's what you have to put it to, is you know what your in is, you know what your top bullet points are, you know what the middle is, you know what the end is, you know how to repeat what you said, and you don't let anybody sidetrack you. I mean, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
You just have to keep the train rolling and not take any spurs, and be in control also of everything. And over the years, that's what I learned. And as a matter of fact, when I first started, I used to just glaze people over with 2-hour theory workshops. And, oh, no, the Locrian mode is, oh, no, really, it's great. But what I realized later was, you know, the basic attention span at a workshop is probably 45 to 75 minutes. And you got to keep it in that realm and keep it moving the entire time. And when at the end of the workshop now, for me, there are no questions, because I've asked and answered all my own questions as I go through, and I get people to participate. And it's just been a wonderful evolution. And over the years, I've had a lot of people come up to me that are retired music teachers or psychologists, or, you know, professional people that say, boy, that was amazing how you did that. And I'm like, well, I'm just playing it by ear.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I've really been loving about all these festivals going online, we just did the Funky Frets Festival together a couple weeks ago, is that at the regular festivals, I'm not able usually to go see many other workshops and watch other people teach. And this has given me an opportunity to be able to essentially sit on other people's classes, which I find so beneficial, both as a player, because obviously we're all always learning new things, but also as a teacher and learning new techniques, watching people like Craig and Sarah teach. I find them just phenomenal teachers, and seeing how they approach situations and structure their classes as well, much as you were talking about needing to have the in, the out, all of those bullet points in there is so important. And I think as a teacher, I'm learning so much through everyone else now that I'm able to watch, yourself included. And it's a beautiful thing.
The good teachers, I mean, the great teachers are the ones that are just as interested in watching other people teach and learning from them than as they are watching them perform. I'll tell you a brief story. The first big ukulele festival in 2004 in Santa Cruz, where like 700 people showed up, and everybody that had a ukulele was there, and young James Hill was there, and I was nobody in the ukulele world at that point. I mean, I was just basically been playing like 4 years. I taught in Portland, Oregon at a music store, but I went down to this festival, and lo and behold, like the first elevator ride I was in was James Hill, who was like 18 at the time, and his father, who he used to travel with. And I was like, I'd never seen him play. I'd heard of this Canadian phenom, you know, and I was like, well, you know, whatever. And so one of my workshops was a basic theory workshop that I was just getting started on. And him and his dad showed up for it. And I was like, that's odd that supposedly this really great player is in my workshop. And then later that night I saw him play, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I went up to him afterwards and I said, what the heck were you doing in my workshop? I mean, seriously. And he goes, I wanted to see how you taught.
Yeah.
There's the answer right there. And he has turned into one of our great teachers on the circuit and done so much. And that friendship with him led me into a relationship with Chalmers Doan, who's the patriarch of the Canadian ukulele in the school system. I just did a nice feature on him in Ukulele Magazine. And so it's true that when you're ready, the teacher will appear. And in the course of my ukulele career, and also my earlier banjo learning career, when I say career, by education, I'm talking about, I've been fortunate enough to get to know these people and become friends with them because of my passion for learning and their passion for learning. And when you meet like-minded people, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Jim. And would you mind playing us another tune?
I'm sorry, no. The union says one tune.
The cat said you have to. Sorry.
Oh, wait, okay. I'm a cat person. I will do it. This one, I tell people, or I ask people, do you know your nursery rhymes? Because, those are great melodies because they come right out of the diatonic scale,
Heck yeah.
right out of the major scale. Those are all the great melodies. That's why they're still around. And one of my favorites is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So I sort of expanded Twinkle a little bit to my own arrangement. And then I coupled that with Dream a Little Dream of Me. I call it my Twinkle medley.
So anyone that's taken any of Jim's workshops over the years knows that he's a big fan of just getting off the page. And I think many of us as uke players, especially beginning, love to have our heads buried in music, for lack of a better term. And Jim, why?
Well, they don't want to make mistakes.
We're gonna
But what they're doing when they're just constantly playing and referring to the book is they're not learning anything, I feel, about the structure of music. Because when you look at a page of sheet music, like from a ukulele book, and it goes along, and here's your C, and here's your F, and here's your G, and here's your C, and here's your F, and here's your G, and all those are repeated. And if it's a 3-chord song, you would think that there are like 25 chords in it because you see them all going by, but really there's only 3. And the one breakthrough that I had early on that really convinced me of doing it the way I do it now is I realized the relationship, lyrics, chords. And it's an amazing relationship. If you stop and listen to the words that fall on a 4 chord and the words that fall on a 5 chord, that's your first step to understanding the emotional value of chords. And a great genre for that, of course, is country music. Anytime she's leaving, it's going to be on the 5 chord. There is no two ways about it.
Because there's motion.
If she's coming back or saying she loves you, it's the 4 chord. That's just the way it is. That's life. Because the four sounds like this. Oh, darling, please don't leave me. But you've been cheating on me since we met. Oh, honey, let's just go home. Hey, history of country music in 30 seconds. Thank you. So if you know that, just to start out, if in your listening career, that about the relationship of the 1, the 4, and the 5, well, you're just adding a chord on, little minor chords here and there, and the next thing you know, you're starting to hear what's happening in a song, and there's only so many chord progressions that are around. And so when I think of songs, I don't think of them the old-fashioned way, one at a time. I think of them in groups of chord progressions. When I think of a 1-6 minor 4-5 tune, I've got a whole passel of them in my head.
Yeah, there's 500 tunes right there. Easily.
I've saved so many people so much money from not having to buy the book 1-6 minor, 2 minor, 5. Which you know the name of that book, of course, it's 10,000 songs from the 50s that all do the same thing.
Of course. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and that even a lot of the old jazz tunes have such similar progressions to them. It's funny that we could call out things such as a honeysuckle rose bridge, and everyone knows what you're talking about.
Oh yeah,
7/4 dominant 2/5. Everyone, and these are common idioms that just keep cropping up in music. There are only so many progressions, and I find that a lot of people get intimidated by the thought of ear training, which is something I think you calm them down a little bit from, which is good, because as you're talking about the 1-4-5, that's a progression we've been hearing our entire lives. If you grew up in the Western world, that tonic dominant relationship informs the vast majority of our music, but it's understanding what you're actually listening for and recognizing it is sometimes the harder part for people.
As a thank you gift for having me on your show here today, I'm going to send you this, Christopher. I'm going to send you one of my biggest selling items of the Play Ukulele by Ear website, and that's the resolution is coming.
Yes.
Refrigerator magnet, because hey, the resolution is always coming, and especially if you're hungry and you put this on your refrigerator, your hunger resolution will soon be coming. You'll find a snack in there, I bet.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's only a few basic premises for especially the music that we want to play as ukulele players. We want to get together and sing and play, but if everybody's nose is in the book, we're not looking at each other and laughing and hearing what we're doing.
And it's hard to play music, to express yourself if you're reading a page. Yeah. It's very hard to be musical. It's, just having fun with uke is so much of the goal here, and that's tough when you're stuck in a page. And I think most uke groups that I've gone to and played the songs that they do with just a basic understanding of the most basic diatonic theory, you can figure out those chord progressions on the fly, and that's fun in and of itself. At least to me, it's just playing things by ear, but then you get to be more in the moment and enjoy yourself more, which is, I think, why most of us play music, right? Is for the fun and for the community, and sometimes we forget about that because we're buried in a page.
Exactly. And in fact, if you go to ukulelemag.com and type in my name, a bunch of articles will come up from the last 4 years I've been writing for them. And one of them is the logical guesstimation system, which is, you have the chords of the major scale. And if you play this to this, what can you guess at might come next? And if you have that lyric thing in your mind that I mentioned, well, you have an even better chance to guess. But people are just, especially adult beginners, are afraid to make mistakes. You know, they don't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
Who wants to look stupid? And you don't know what to do next with an instrument. Well, you have to put those fears aside and open your ears, because fear closes your ears. It really does. And listen. And I tell you, some of the biggest highlights in my music education have been always when I figured it out for myself. When I heard something or I play something, and the next thing I know, oh, like here's a good example is, here are the open strings of a ukulele, and you go, right? Open strings, C, E, G, A. So I'm practicing this one day with some rhythm, maybe, and I say to myself, that's the bridge to one of my favorite songs by Booker T and the MGs, Time Is Tight, a great instrumental from like 1968, where Steve Cropper, one of the great R&B guitarists of all time, he was the house guitarist for Stax Records in Memphis in the late 60s, you know, worked with Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, all those great. There's the break. Then he goes to the 4-chord. There it is. And when you can shock and amaze yourself that music isn't really that difficult, popular music, if you study the foundation of it and put it in your ear, and that being the major scale and the chromatic scale, hey, it's fun. Try it sometime.
Yeah, and it's something that I love that you do, is you really separate music from the just playing of ukulele, because if you understand music, you can apply that to any instrument. It's just another life skill that you're really giving people.
Oh, yeah.
And that's beautiful.
There's a lot of instruments that look like this.
Yeah.
Have these little wires, you know?
Right. Right. And the thing, I mean, if you understand your basic chords and your scales, you can, you know, the instrument's just acting as a tool for you to express that on. Those things are for every multi-instrumentalist, you learn that once and it's there for you. And that's,
oh, yeah,
that's wonderful. Jim, you had mentioned earlier, actually, that you've been teaching at festivals for nearly 20 years now. And for most people that listen to this that are uke players, you know, there's a great resurgence of the ukulele world about 20, 25 years ago or so. I'm curious as to how you've seen the progression of the ukulele world in the last 20 years, and maybe also where you see it heading in the next 20 years.
Well, when I really got into it, well, I started about 20 years ago on the ukulele, 10 years on the banjo, frustrated tablature memorizer on the banjo, couldn't play anything by ear really, not even chord progressions that well. But the ukulele opened it up for me because there was no pressure. You know, who's a great ukulele player? I couldn't name one in 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I started getting a little bit better on the uke, learning my inversions, chord inversions, going up the neck, things like that. And I went to the big Santa Cruz, as I mentioned earlier, the big Santa Cruz ukulele festival that happened in 2004, and everybody was there. Lyle Ritz, Bill Tapia, James Hill. I mean, everybody that could play well was there. And that showed me sort of the beginning of the workshop aspect of it. And I mean, I saw Jim Beloff there doing a workshop. I did my first workshops there, and it was very small. And there were a lot of people there, but it was like everybody at one place, one time. It wasn't like all these festivals all over the world now, or all over the States. But over the years, obviously the workshops have gotten really great, and the players have gotten better, and the luthiers have gotten better, the instruments have gotten better, and it's just been a great evolution. But I think the one drawback is with anything, it's like the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. If you would have been there, in the 80s or 70s, you could have hung out with Dr. John and Professor Longhair. But, then it gets too popular, and then 200,000 people show up. And, I went the year I went there, I saw Robert Cray. You know that Robert Cray is only that tall?
Actual footage.
That's all. That's well, at least from where I was seated. But things get too big, and like now with the online presence and YouTube and all that, I mean, you could type ukulele instructor, and you don't know what you're going to get.
You do.
You
Yeah.
know, you don't know what you. And so, is somebody going to show you? No, hold it like this. No, really. That's the best.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy, questionable things on YouTube.
Yeah, there are some questionable things, and so you can't really filter it. And I don't know that Google has an algorithm to filter the better instructors. So you just have to, you've got a bigger minefield to go through. But places like Ukulele Magazine, obviously, they're hiring the people that are on the circuit, that are out there playing, James and the like. So you just have to find the people that are actually working in the ukulele world and teaching and playing. That's where you get your information.
Right. I think that's a great point, because I tell a lot of my students, you want to learn ukulele from someone that plays ukulele, not a recovering guitarist that bought a ukulele, because they are in fact two separate instruments. And I've had many private students that have come to me from the world of learning on YouTube, and especially the technique side of things is scary, and it's hard to unlearn those things once you get those bad habits ingrained in you. Well,
you make a very good point, and someone that I know that is a fabulous guitar player, which is Del Rey. She's one of the great blues and folk guitar players in the world. And she came to ukulele probably about, I don't know, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. And she's a musician's musician. She didn't approach it like playing the guitar. She knew that it was a ukulele, that it had a re-entrant string up here, and she taught herself to play the ukulele like a ukulele.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough in the last, since this pandemic has occurred, I'd worked with her over the years. We did, for 4 years in a row, we did a camp at the Kerrville Folk Festival together, team teaching. So we'd worked together before, and we decided, let's teach some finger picking lessons online. And that has turned into a really fabulous thing. We're on our third round. We've got 2 levels of called dead thumb finger picking, where you just keep that thumb going the whole time and get this old-timey, bluesy, folk, ragtimey sound. But working with her, it's just been amazing, because she approaches it like that, and she gets that great ukulele sound, not guitar sound. So it's a big difference. That's a good point, Christopher.
Yeah, Del Rey. I met Del Rey. We were both teaching up at Centrum for the Acoustic Blues Week, not for their ukulele week, a couple years ago. It was great because she was doing one uke class and one guitar class, and I was doing the rest of the uke classes, which gave me time to sit in on her classes. And both her teaching style and her playing is just mind blowing. She's such a phenomenal player, but also such a great historian of the acoustic blues, which is something that I personally love. I learned so much from her in little spaces that I got to see her in that week. But agreed that she's probably one of the best Piedmont style blues guitar players.
Oh yeah.
I mean, she sounds like Memphis Minnie. It's incredible.
Oh yeah.
Finger style work. But then she, as she does adapt some of those things to uke, but she definitely plays it like it's a different instrument, and really works so well within the limitations of uke, and does things that most other people wouldn't think of.
And another benefit from this online thing that we've had to go to, when we started these lessons, I believe in late April or early May, I'm coming from this picking thing from this background right here, the banjo background, thumb, index, middle. I've done this for 25 years, thumb, index, middle. So this has been trained and ingrained in my brain for that long. And every time I would get together with Del over the last probably 7 years, I would say, I wouldn't take a lesson per se. I would just like have my phone and say, show me the first aspect of learning how you play, and she would do something, and I would record it. And then I'd go home and go, oh God, do I really have to use that finger?
Yeah.
I don't want to use that finger. And then I would go, well, if I don't use that finger, then I'm not really doing her style. And then I would go, okay, I'm not going to practice that. Okay. So I wanted it desperately to be able to play that style, but I wouldn't make the commitment. And every year I do the same thing. Hey, show me a little bit, show me a little bit. Until we started these lessons, I said, okay, I'm going to commit. I'm going to strengthen this finger. And it's been now May, June, July, August. It's been 5 full months, and I'm playing like, I'm not playing like her. I'm playing in the same style as her with this finger. And it's really, I can't believe it. Unless I would have been every week working with her on creating these lessons and then practicing the amount of time I had to practice to get up to speed, I wouldn't have accomplished this much in 5 months. So that's the good thing about this, is we're getting to practice more. And I see it on PopUp Uke. People are getting better.
Yeah, I'm mainly a performer, so I'm usually out playing most of the year. And I've had so much more time to practice now versus perform, and I love it. I missed practicing. I didn't realize how much I really missed it. The actual converted practice is so, I would practice every day, do my warm-ups and get what I could done, but actually having 2 to 3 hours a day to practice sometimes is, it's beautiful.
It really is.
I finally feel like after all these years, I'm making progress. Jim, would you mind playing us one final tune?
Yes, I will. This is an instrumental I wrote entitled Venus Swooning. So imagine yourself on a beach on the Oregon coast at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're watching the Perseid meteor shower, and then you look up and here's a full moon and Venus right above it, and they're both sinking into the ocean together, Venus swooning. And so that's the inspiration for this instrumental piece.
Jim, thank you so much for taking the time out of your morning to join me and talk a little bit about Uke. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, and I'll invite everybody to visit my PopUp Uke. Don't confuse that with PopUp Uke, which you really have to.
And I will link up to PopUp Uke in the description here so that everyone can go
All right,
check.
thanks. And here's a little bit of the Columbia Gallup to take us home. Thanks a lot, Christopher.